Okay, we're in the Book of Deuteronomy. Bear with me. Sick. But I know I need to do this, so I'm going to do this. Now, basically, we know that Moses has a time that he's appointed to die, and he'll not be able to enter to the promised land for not fully obeying God and smiting the rock rather than talking to it and bringing forth water. So Joshua will be in charge of leading Israel into the land which will swear to their fathers. So they're on one side of Jordan, the river Jordan, and they split the territories between half the tribe of Manasseh and then Reuben and I believe Gad. So chapter 1 is basically the introduction of it, and that recaps their journey through the wilderness to the part where they're at now, which is right there before Jordan. And the men did evil in the generations of the Israelites, so God basically didn't let them go through and let them all die off, except for Caleb and Joshua, because they brought a good report while the other guys brought evil reports to stress Israel over the people in the land, because they didn't trust God would deliver them into their hands. And basically he told them in part of their journey not to meddle with the children of Esau, which is Edom, because God promised them that land and they're not going to possess it. And then parts of the Moabites, because they did kill some of the kings of Moab, but parts of the Moabites, they couldn't meddle with them because their land, God gave them a certain part of land for possession of the children of Lot. And it says there that Emims dwelt therein in times past, a people great, many, tall, as the Anakims, which were giants. So you know there's giants that lived in the lands before. Could be physically large people, which is probably what it is. But it basically goes through their times through the wilderness, and they're basically summing up everything that happened in Exodus and Leviticus and all that. Yeah, he just talks about their wars with Sihon the king of Bashan, and the king of Og, about their cities and taking it and destroying them, Heshbon. The cattle they took for spoil of the cities they took to themselves. The allotment goes to half of the tribe of Manasseh and Reuben and Gad. Yes, so those 2.5 tribes take that. Parts of the land before Jordan, before they cross over Jordan, which Moses does not get to, and Joshua will lead them over Jordan. Chapter 4 goes to a call of obedience, and basically telling them to keep God in their life, to not turn from Him, but to cleave to the Lord. This is, but ye that did cleave unto the Lord are alive, every one of you this day. Because some of them turned aside and worshipped Baal Peor and sacrificed their children to the gods of the Midianites. And it says, what gets me, for what nation is there so great who hath God so nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon Him for? So basically, what nation is so great that has God so close to them, and yet they turn from Him? And if you look at America, it was built on Christian values, biblical values, principles, and all that. But it's turned from it. And and people fuss. Well, everybody's voted for Barack because he's black, and everybody's did this and did that. Look what he's doing to the country. Look what he's doing. Look at the Democrats. Look at the Republicans. Blah, blah, blah. And it's not really about a political race. It's about God's plan and His purpose for this country. Because if God didn't want a Republican or a Democrat in the White House, they wouldn't be in there. For God could persuade us to vote in a certain direction for His purpose. Whether His purpose be good for a country or bad for a country, it's His purpose. But people like to run their mouth and put their opinions out there, so. But basically, God's in control of all things, and things happen for His purpose. So, He's telling them to teach their children the things that God done for them. And to take heed into it and declare. Because the Lord spake to him out of the midst of a fire, and they heard His voice. What man has lived and heard the voice of God? Who could live? Because His power is so strong. Our bodies couldn't even handle it. We'd die. He's telling them to keep that, lest they corrupt themselves and make a graven image and commit idolatry. And He's telling them to write His laws, to have a remembrance lest they turn aside. And then the thing is, He says what they're going to do right here. It says, when thou shalt beget children and children's children, and you shall remain a long time in the land, and shall corrupt yourself and make a graven image, and shall do evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke Him to anger. I call heaven and earth witness against you this day. You shall soon utterly perish from off the land whereunto you go over Jordan to possess it, and ye shall not prolong your days upon it, but shall be utterly destroyed. And the Lord will scatter you among the nations, and you shall be left few in number among the heathen, whither the Lord shall lead you. You'll serve the gods and work in men's hands, wood and stone, neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. But from thence thou shalt seek the Lord thy God. Thou shalt find Him, if thou seek Him with all thy heart and with all thy soul. When thou art in tribulation, and all these things are come upon thee, even in the latter days, which is today. If thou shalt turn to the Lord thy God, and shalt be obedient unto His voice, for He is merciful God, He will not forsake you, neither destroy you, nor forget the covenant of thy fathers which He sware unto them. You think about that. That's just for everybody, really. If we seek Him with all our heart and our soul, not for selfish purposes, but just know that we need Him and seek Him, He'll deliver us. And like His people, Israel, they're scattered out among the earth. Some of them out there, they don't even know that they're part of Israel. They're probably in the midst of nations that hate Israel. They probably hate the Israelites too, and they don't even know that they're an Israelite. There's going to be a day that God's going to open their eyes, and they're going to realize who they are from wherever they're at, whether they're rich or poor, and they're going to go back to their land, and it's going to be a beautiful day. And it just goes on down. This is basically Moses' last words to them, reassuring and reiterating the law and what God's purpose is and what's going to happen to them if they turn from God, and just encouraging them also, because this is his last speech to them. And then it talks about the cities of refuge, which we know a slayer will flee to, so nobody will touch him until it's time for his judgment. Then it goes on to the commandments and the commands concerning God, which is, got the Ten Commandments and other laws, not worshiping any other gods before him, and not killing or committing adultery or stealing, or, honor your mother and your father. Then you go on to the command to love the Lord. It's saying to fear him and keep his statutes and his commandments for your sons and your sons' sons and all your days of your life, that your days may be prolonged. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord with all thine heart, and with all thine soul, and with all thy might. And all the words that he commands them shall be in thine heart, and teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk with them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you raise up. Bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes." Now this right here gets me. It says, "Bind it for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be frontlets between thine eyes." You worship God. You learn it. You memorize his words, what he says, what he wants, his laws. And you bind it. And you get it in your mind, between your eyes and your head. That's the mark of God, is if you have it in your heart and in your head, in your soul. And I believe when people talk about the mark of the beast, some people think it's a physical thing, which, it could be, we don't know. But I believe it's the worship of having the beast's ways in your head, on you, in your spirit, in your soul, to where you live by that way. That's the mark of the beast, I guess. But, we'll get to that whenever we get to it. But right now, it's having God's law and his fear inside of you. And get this. It's basically saying, keep it, his commandments, do right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may be well with thee. And it goes on down to, telling your kids and stuff, and keep going. Now, this here in chapter 7, when they come into the land, before they're going to cast out the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, Perizzites, and the Hivites, Jebusites, 7 nations greater than them. And he's going to deliver them before their hands. They ain't to make marriage with their daughters, or give their daughters to their sons, because they'll turn them away from following the Lord and serve other gods. He wants them to destroy their altars, cut down their groves, and burn their graven images, for they are a holy people. And God didn't send his love or choose them because they were more in number than any people, for they were the fewest of all people. He kept them because he wanted his covenant with their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the reason why he wanted to kill the nations out of that land was because of their idolatry, their paganism. They was an abomination before the Lord. For the Lord owns everything. Everything is his. But he says whenever they go against foreign nations, they can keep captives, bring the women and children and all that. But when it came to them, he wanted all of them killed. He tells them not to be afraid, because the Lord, what he did to Pharaoh and unto Egypt, he'll fight their battles, and they have to remember that. He'll send hornets among them until they are left, and hide themselves from thee, and be destroyed. God is among them. He'll put out the nations before them little by little, that they mayest not consume them at once, lest the beasts of the field increase upon thee. No one will be able to stand before them, because God is with them. It's like with us, as we're moving ahead in life, if we turn to God, no one could stand in our ways to get to our destinations that we're destined to be if we trust in God. Chapter 8 goes on to remembering God's past dealings. Basically, this right here gets me. Like, this is basically talking about God, and He supplies. Because you look at verse 10 in chapter 8, it says, "When thou hast eaten and art full, and thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good of the land which he giveth thee, beware that thou forget not that the Lord thy God, in not keeping his commandments, and his judgments, and his statutes, which I command thee this day." Basically, then in 14, "Then thine heart be lifted up, and forget that the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, who led thee through the great and terrible wilderness, where the fiery serpents and scorpions and drought were there no water, who brought thee forth and fed thee in the wilderness." Basically, it's saying He gives us what we have. We don't get anything on our own. He's the one that gives us what we need and what we have. The reason we prosper is because of Him. Chapter 9 is basically saying the same thing. Don't lift yourself up, but know that God is bringing you forward. Because it's talking about them as they're going against the other nations and casting them out from before them. That their heart not get up and righteous to go possess the land, because the Lord drove them out, which He swore to their fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because He says they're a stiff-necked people. "Remember, forget not that how thou hast provoked the Lord thy God to wrath in the wilderness from the day that they departed out of Egypt. Ye have been rebellious against the Lord." And basically it's saying, as we're moving forward, see, He wants them, as they're moving forward, to not get that uprightness of their heart, to feel like they're moving up in life and being super righteous and they're everything, and that God's not doing it for them, but they've earned it themselves. And it basically goes on down and talks about how they've been rebellious, and about the golden calf and all that happened, and how they provoked the Lord during those times in the wilderness. And it goes on about the 10 Commandments again, how He broke the stones when He was angry, and had to remake them and stuff, and they put them in the ark, and then making the ark of the covenant. And it goes on about their journey again, and then He calls them to commitment, telling them to walk in the Lord's ways and fear Him and serve Him and cleave and swear by His name. He is their praise. He is their God. He has done for thee these great and terrible things which thine eyes have seen. See, God is merciful, but He's also a terrible God. He is the only God. No other gods can stand to Him, for He will destroy all, but love all if we seek Him. And then then he goes on down to, in chapter 11, about the land and stuff. Basically, in Egypt they had to plant their own seeds and all this and the herbs, but here in the land of Canaan, it's a hilly land, beautiful. They don't have to do as much work. It also talks about remembering the rebellion of the sons of Reuben, where the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up. And it's talking about basically the acts of the Lord and laying His words up in their heart and their soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, and that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. Once again, see that between their eyes. Write them on the posts of your house and upon your gates, that their days may be multiplied. and if they follow the Lord and they're